gentlemen who were Navajo Code Talkers during World War II. Rather than spend a great deal of time myself talking, though, I'd just like to have each of them take 5 to 10 minutes, just talk about themselves, where they came from, how they came to be in this program, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
My name is Keith Little. I'm from Crystal, New Mexico. Originally, I was from Tuba City, Arizona. That's on the western part of the Navajo Nation. And I was about a 15-year-old kid when we first heard about Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. And I did not know where Pearl Harbor was, being in school, in a boarding school at Ganado Mission, Ganado, Arizona. And we were quite upset why that happened, because we knew nothing about the problem the United States and Japan were having at the time. And it was billed over the news as a sneak attack. So that made it kind of quite a resentment against the people that bombed Pearl Harbor. To begin with, we didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was. Being that the Navajo land was so isolated at the time, with hardly any outside contact, except for the people that they were running the school. But anyway, it took until 1943 for me to become 17 years old, so I could enlist with parental permission from my guardians. So I enlisted in Gallup, New Mexico. They told me to run back to Fort Defiance and ride the school bus to St. John's, Arizona. From there we were shipped to Phoenix. So that's how I got into the Marine Corps, out of feeling of the way the bombing of Pearl Harbor kind of more or less built up a resentment that that you had to do something to the people that pulled that bombing. So you had to feel it. In my own personal way, I felt that I have to do something. I have to somehow contribute. But at 15 years old, you were just a helpless person. You don't know what to do. Everybody else is, all your buddies and friends were leaving and going into the service. And yeah, to make things a little more unknown was the fact that I didn't even know anything about the United States Marine Corps even existed at the time too. But during the summer of 1944, there was a surge of Navajos enlisted into the Marine Corps. And some of my friends went and were in boot camp when they wrote a letter to me saying that they were in the United States Marine Corps. So that kind of swayed my mind that I shall also enlist into the Marine Corps, since there was a way of retaliation for me against the people that pulled the attack on Pearl Harbor. But that's how I got into the Marine Corps. That was my my own decision for resentment against the Japanese people for pulling something like that. So in May 1943, I got to boot camp in San Diego. And during the course of my training, the DIs, the drill instructors, asked if I happened to be American Indian. So I told him yes, and then he went further and asked me if I was a Navajo. So I told him that I'm a Navajo, and in return he says, I hear that the United States Marine Corps need Navajos real bad because they make good scouts. So that is how they channeled me to Navajo Communications School at Camp Pendleton. I went through and qualified, got into the 4th Marine Division in December 1943, and shipped over in January 1944, and saw my first battle at Roy Namor Island in Marshall Islands. My second battle was at Saipan, and then my third battle was at Tinian in the Marianas. And my fourth battle and the last one was Iwo Jima in the volcanoes. So that's how I got into the Marine Corps, and our convalescent camp was at Maui Island in Hawaii, Camp Maui. That's where we were when the war was over. And that took a lot of burden, mental burden off our mind, because there's always uncertainties about going to the homeland of the Japanese people, and we knew that we were going to have a tough going with them. So that was the size of my participation in World War II with the United States Marine Corps, and also as a Navajo Code Talker.
Good afternoon. He said everything I wanted to say. I myself was in a similar situation, being underage and having witnessed the sneak attack of December 7, 1941 of Pearl Harbor. And I'm Arizonian. They sunk the USS Arizona battleship, so that kind of got me angry. And I was only 15 too at the time. I was going to Albuquerque Indian School. During that summer, everybody went to war, that 1941, December 7th. Even this whole country went to war. All the things that we eat, a lot of things that were rationed, gasoline were rationed, and you couldn't buy more than a few pounds of steak because it was needed by the soldiers. And then there was a lot of manufacturing growing up all over this country, and that's where all of those that couldn't qualify to join any armed forces of the United States were going to get a job and work there making ammunition for the armed forces. And I got a chance to work on the railroad that summer, 10 hours a day. I was only 15 and a half. My older brother went to work first. He said he was 21 years old. When I got over there, I told him I was 22, and I got to work with just to get myself in shape to join any armed forces of the United States to defend this country. And so happened after that, there was things that were coming up, and I got to thinking about the Marine Corps because they said that was the toughest. And I prepared myself to take that challenge. And finally, I got in 1943 in May. I went to, or it was 1942 during the Christmas vacation. we went downtown Albuquerque with this guy to, he was eligible, I wasn't, so I went back in to Recruiter and told him I made a mistake on my birth year. And I lowered the year, and then I became eligible. So that's how I got in to be a Marine. I went down to San Diego not knowing there was a Navajo communication school. When I finished the 13 weeks boot camp, I took an aptitude test to be a pilot. I passed it, but I had only finished 11th grade, so they wouldn't let me in. My next choice was artillery because that can do a lot of damage. By that time, they found out I was a Navajo, and they asked me if I was a Navajo. I said yes. After that, I'm not on my own anymore. They took me up to Camp Pendleton, Oceanside, California, where there was one barrack full of Indian boys and men. And that's where the Navajo Code Talker School was. So I joined with them, and I had to take that training. Not only the Navajo Code, but we took the other course to be a communication personnel. We had to learn Morse code, semaphore, blinker, plus the Navajo Code, which was mostly of memorizing our own language, but it was developed by the first 29 men that did the job, and we had to learn, memorize that one, so I did that with them. And one day they told us that they were going to give us a test for promotion to sergeant. And I made the grade, but I didn't get the stripe, so I got sent overseas with 30 other men, which was 4th Marine Division. And he was one of them. And that's how it happened. We hit Marshall Islands first and then came back to Maui, second biggest island in Pearl Harbor. That's where we maneuvered with the replacements. And all the Navajo Code Talkers in 4th Marine Division were brought up to my company, 4th Signal Company, where they had a big tent. And that's where we did our practice at Navajo Code. And if we had any problem on the previous battle, that was where we corrected, because we wanted to make the code to work very, very fast without any mistakes. We had to do that every day. And so after that, we went and hit Saipan, which took us, I think it was 3 weeks, and a rest there on Saipan after we deliberated the Micronesian people that were captured there. And later we went across down southwest to Tinian, where we didn't have much problem because the Japanese were doing Banzai. Formed like old cowboys and Indians form a line behind the hill and come over shooting, and they just picked them up. And there we also got to have a little fiesta of our own. There was some goats there, and we butchered the goat and had a cookout. At first, the Navajos were eating the mutton by themselves. Later, I saw some white boys eating mutton. So we had a good time there, and then later came back to Maui. During the recuperation at Maui, they flew me and my assistant to Pearl Harbor. And there we found some other instructors from the Marine Corps Division that were brought from other islands. I don't exactly know where, but 5th Marine Division was on the Big Island. So that's how we put together our communication with correct problems and made one book to use in the next operation, which became Iwo Jima. And when we was going to hit Iwo Jima at the briefing, they said that it was going to take 1 week to take that island, a small island. So we hit the next day and stayed there for about 32 days. And that is about the size of my experience in the war. They called the 4th Marine Division the fightingest division in the South Pacific. And I kind of think our general was a Republican. We fought too many times in the short period. I served 2 years, 9 months in Marine Corps. That one of them that came out with high numbers. I wrote up a lot of numbers to be eligible to get discharged. And we did this, I did this when I was not even a citizen of the United States. And also there was a treaty back in 1865 that was signed by our Navajo leaders that in order to get released from Fort Sumner compound by the government that we never bear arms again. So they were released on that condition, but during this World War II, it affected some of the men that wanted to join any armed forces of the United States on account of that resolution, but the Navajo Tribal Council immediately acted on this, wrote a resolution to the Congress for them to approve it, and after that it was free for us to join any armed forces of the United States. And that is about another thing that we didn't like. Me, for instance, I didn't like being told at the schools where I went not to talk my language. We were forbidden to talk Navajo language up to World War II. And here, see what it did for the war is the language, the Navajo language. Now it is emphasized that the Navajo language be taught at all schools on the Navajo reservation. And there were other things that the Navajo Code Talkers did for the Navajo tribe that opened the doors to some of the things that we couldn't do or couldn't have before that war. The United States government was trying to separate us from our reservation. They had plans to send us out on relocation. A lot of us took advantage of that, but we all came back to the Navajo reservation, try to stay with the culture. Thank you very much.
Yate. Everybody say, Yate. You just broke the code. Buenas tardes. Aloha. Konnichiwa. Finally, good afternoon. My name is Sam Billson. I went to school in Albuquerque Indian School, and I enlisted in 1943 when I was in high school senior, based on the idea that there used to be captions in newspapers and radio that the few that braved the Marines, and I really wanted to be one of those. To make it worse, John Wayne was making some pictures of the Marines. So I enlisted, and the recruiter said, go get your diploma, finish your high school, and we'll come and get you. So they did. Graduation day, they were sitting over there on the side waiting for me. So when I guess they already saw the principal, and when I came across the stage, they pronounced my name, Sam Billson, Private United States Marine Corps. Man, I threw out my flat chest and cross. I was real proud. Went to Santa Fe, took my physical. They took me to San Diego, and went to boot camp, which is basic training. After boot camp, they found out I was a Navajo, that I could speak Navajo, understand Navajo. So they told me, we have a program for you. There were two of us in that platoon. So, and then there was this other guy, and they asked him, how about you, Chief? And he says, me too. So both of us, they told us, throw your seat back in that Jeep, we'll take you to the ocean side. And I thought, gee, what are they going to do with us at the ocean side? I didn't know there was the name of a town. They took us there, and there was a big, brand new camp, Camp Pendleton. And they drove up there, and there was a big barracks, and all the Navajos were studying outside. I guess they were studying code. And I thought, gee, look at all those Navajos. I just came from Navajo Reservation. I don't want to be with them. I want to be with the Marines. So I stopped there. We stopped there, registered, and started studying that code. Got real interesting. And the language was coded where nobody could understand it. The concept came from World War I, where the Army used the Choctaws and the Comanches to translate messages in their own language. It wasn't coded, so any of their tribe could understand what they were saying. Contrary to that, the Navajos, it was coded, nobody understood. Not the Marines, not the Baptist Church, not even the Navajos. They haven't even broken the code yet. And the first 29 Navajo Marines are the ones that developed this code. Most of those first 29, they were sheep herders. We were all sheep herders before we got into the war, because that was the economic system out in Navajo Reservation. We used the sheep for food, clothing, Navajo rugs, and all those things. And so who would think that a bunch of sheep herders, these 29 Marines, Navajos, youngsters, some of them were 16, 17, 18, they all lied about their age so they can get in the Marine Corps. In some cases, their parents have to sign for them. So who would think these Navajos, they weren't intelligent, they weren't researchers, they weren't writers, but who would think a bunch of sheep herders would come up with a code that nobody ever broke that code. And I guess nobody ever will. I was thinking maybe only the sheep might find out. So, and then that, when the first Guadalcanal was the first island that the Marines landed on. By that time, the Japanese had taken all of Eastern Asia, Philippines, Borneo, and Solomon Islands. Guadalcanal was one of the islands in Solomon Islands. They took that and there were only 2 Marine divisions at that time, 1st and 2nd Marine divisions, and the first 29 Marines were in those 2 divisions. During the process of the war, Navajos keep coming in, being trained. The Marine Corps keep developing the divisions. At the end of the war, they finally had 6 Marine divisions. But Navajo Code Talkers were in every division of the Marine Corps, and they were assigned to artillery, infantry, tanks, headquarters. Some were assigned to Air Force, some were assigned out in the ships. So Navajo communication was crisscrossing throughout these campaigns. And it got so significant, so true, so fast, that during the Iwo Jima, the main communication was Navajo Code. Can you imagine that? I can't. And this Navajo Code was top secret right from the training. If you study Navajo Code today, you don't take anything out that door. You don't take notes. There's no written lessons. Everything that they say, you put it in your head. And it was top secret at the training, top secret during the war, top secret 20 years after the war. It was still top secret. And we never knew the magnitude that we contributed to the war until 20 years after the war. People start calling us, hey, you're Navajo Code Talker. Come here, we want to honor you. We thought, gee, what did we do? So, but you know that during the war, we were all private first class. Private first class throughout the war. The day we were being discharged, they gave us another stripe. So we were discharged as corporals, United States Marine Corps. That stripe came without the money, just the stripe. You know, the Indians are always the bottom of the totem pole. That's where we were. So this is very a summary of what happened, and just one item that I want to, the first thing that the first 29 did was the officer put them in a room, he locked the door, and they said, okay, boys, come out with a coat. They didn't even know what coat meant. Said, use the language, come out with a coat. They talk, and they finally said, we need an alphabet. So they started the alphabet. Navajo is not a written language. We use what we call a phonetic alphabet, using the American alphabet, numerical system and the alphabet. So they came up with an alphabet. Each letter had about 3 different meanings. For instance, letter A, there was 3 things, Wulachi, Vilasana, and Sennish. You know what that is, right? Right. Wulachi is red ant. Vilasana is apple. Sennish is X. The reason why they did that, if a word has 2 A's, you can't continue to say Wulachi, Wulachi. Japanese can break that code. They're very intelligent, very good at breaking their code. Soon after the war started, they were breaking the American code. This is why they put the Navajo language in there. So, and on Guadalcanal, they had problem with this code. When the Marines heard it over the radio, they said, hey, the Japanese have taken over our communication. And here was the Navajo Code trying to translate messages. And the general didn't like the idea, so the complaint kept coming in, so the general said, well, let's test these Indians. He didn't say Navajo, he kept saying Indians. So they wrote a small message. The American code, when it's sent over, when it's received, it's still in code. So it goes to a place where it deciphers the code, goes to another officer. He checks to see if it's today's code, because the American code changed every day. Then goes to another officer to see if it's the right message. Goes to another officer to see if it's coming from the right place to the right place. Almost 2 hours that message got to the general. So he says, let's try the Indians. So we send a message, the same message. When we send a message, as it's coming over, it's being decoded. When the receiver receives it, it's in English. So he hands it to the general. 2.5 minutes against the American code, which is almost 2 hours. So he said, let's try another one. They tried again. The same thing happened. The American code, almost 2 hours. The Navajo code, 2.5 minutes. So the general says, well, he says, let's keep those damn Indians. Thank you very much.
So the Marine Corps did an actual test under combat conditions, as he said, found out that they were way faster and much more accurate than the other way of doing business. So that's the story. Now, what I'd like to do is give you an opportunity to ask these gentlemen some questions. So does anybody have a question in the audience?
If the gentleman would honor us, I was wondering if one of the gentlemen could say to another gentleman, there are tanks over the hill. We need air support.
There are tanks over the hill. You want me to tell you that?
In the Navajo Code, tell your friend, there are tanks over the hill. We need air support.
I can't do that. It's top secret. Well, the closest you can say is check the guy. See, that's what was the last word? Air support. Work city. That's the message. You get it? Good question.
What you should do is write it down. You know, somebody write it down. He used the word over the hill. And when you say hill, you say horse sick. Written down in English, it'll be like that. Over here, we say horse sick. Lintatsa. See? That's hill. That's a hill. And he says, over the hill, there's a tank or something.
Next question.
I'd like to thank the three of you for your service and helping us win that incredible war. Appreciate it. My question stems from the movie that you probably saw a couple years ago that came out. It was called Wind Talkers. Were any of you involved in helping the making or giving any consulting to that movie that was made?
Yes, when John Woo and Terrence Chan came to our meeting at one time in Gallup, he presented us with that, making a movie for us. And we read the script, and we started to take out some funny things. And this had happened some years ago, about 30 years ago, with Ernest Greenberg production. They brought us a script, and then we did that. We went ahead and took out all the things, the funny parts that would sell the movie. So this time I knew about it, and I plead with the association to go ahead and pass it so we can have it made and use the money for us. And we did get some money for scholarship, so I did have a part in that, to ask my comrades to go ahead and pass it, and they did.
Was consideration ever given to expand the role of the Code Talkers to the European theater a la the U.S. Army? Because I recognize that in some battles in the Pacific, U.S. Army troops were involved.
I could very well answer that, but I can't hear what you say. My hearing is not good.
To know if you ever thought about using it for the Army in Europe.
Well, we were in the United States Marine Corps, but we were not thinking of the Army. I guess the Army could have used it if they wanted to.
The short answer for the Army is no.
I understood that it was first presented to the Army General, and the Army General said, what the hell are those Indians going to do? So they took it to Marine Corps General, who in turn accepted to try this language.
Excuse me, even though in my accent, I'm interested to know, reading the book about you, then you had problem with American soldier in front line. They were thinking that you are Japanese dressed in American uniform. My question is, did anybody of you was captured by Japanese? Do they detected your language?
On Guadalcanal, one of the problems was that you know, the Navajos, most Navajos are short, they're dark complected, black hair, some of them kind of have slant eyes, and they were mistaken for Japanese and they were thrown in the brick. But fortunately, they weren't killed or anything, because they sent a code talker to the brick, and they talked Navajo to them, and they tell them, no, he's a Navajo code talker, get him out of there, we need him. So, but the enemy never captured any. There was no Navajo that was captured. There was an Army Navajo that was captured on Philippine Islands at Bataan. They took him to Japan, and they interrogated him, took all his clothes off. It was in winter time. His feet were frozen to the pavement. He had no clothes on, and they'd give him the message. They'd say, tell us what this message says. And he'd tell him exactly what it says. And he says, it's Navajo, and this is what it says. And it didn't make any sense. Just like Mr. Little said, hill would be Shintatsa, which is H is, when you spell out the alphabet, H is horse. So dot sa is ill. It's B-I-L-L. So combine horse, ill, chain dot sa. That makes hill, right? Right. So they took this guy and he told him it's Navajo and this is what it says. And eventually they gave up on him, put him back in prison. When the war was over, he came back. He came back to Tuba City, and some of the Code Talkers talked to him. They knew him, and he told the Code Talkers that I don't like the Code Talkers. They put me in trouble. Thank you.
Hello. I had an older brother that was in the Army Air Force, and he got shot down.
Is this mic on? My mic's on.
Check.
Where was I? I had an older brother that was in the Army Air Force, and he got shot down over Philippines during the time we were in the Pacific. And he told me one time when he found out I was a code talker, and said that they took him, when they found out he was a Navajo, they took him to the radio room. Over there, they put a wire around his head with a tourniquet on the side. And they tried to, he did copy everything that was said over the air. And they keep turning the whatever till he passed out. But he said he never could broke the Navajo Code those years. He didn't tell me much about it, just a little bit, and 2 years later he died.
I'm wondering if the Code Talkers could tell us of the moments of which they were most proud during their service.
Sir.
What did he say?
There were two things I was most proud of. One was defeat of the Japanese military. We took Iwo Jima, and I wanted them to give it to the Indians, but they gave it back to Japan. The second most important thing that I really enjoyed was the GI Bill. The Marines gave me 3 years and 10 months of GI Bill that I can use to go to school. And I used every bit of it. If I didn't have that GI Bill, I'd still be herding sheep. Thank you.
For me, it was getting promoted by my grandfather, because when, as a Navajo going to war, I was blessed with a ceremony by my grandpa. And the night he was going to bless me to go to war, he reached over and touched my arm and he said, "Grandson, you're still a punk. You haven't caught a coyote pup," he said. And I didn't know what it was, a coyote pup. So I told him, "That's all right, Grandpa, there are probably some on the way I could catch." Here, the coyote pup in the Navajo language is like you people talk to your son about birds and bees. So when I got discharged, I came home, and my father was home, and he did some pleasant things for me before I could hug and shake hands with my relatives. And that night, my grandpa, the same one, came again to bless me and shoo away all the bad things that I have gathered overseas. And this time he said, "Grandson, you are now a man," he told me, "and a warrior." So I got promoted by my grandpa, and him and his brother, another grandpa, they asked me questions all night almost. And I had to tell them everything I did while I was in the service. And after all that talking, third degree, they went and shooed away all the bad things that I had brought home. And that was, I was very proud of that. Thank you.
About the question, what was you the most proudest of? I suppose I didn't have any, but I think that the Navajo Code, as it was developed or devised in a way that even our own people did not understand. So applying it in battle is something that kind of makes you feel like that you're doing something for your country anyway. You know, that's we are tied to the land. They say that we were created in southwestern United States. A land selected by the holy people. So our spiritual and cultural ties are to that land. And on it, our people live the way we live. The white people say we're poor, but that's a way of life. Because we do what we like to do. And they were not starving, although it's just a way of life that they live in, that the mainstream American don't understand it. When they look at a Hokan with no water, no running water, no facilities of any kind, they say that's a poor way, that's poverty. But in our way, that's a way of life. So you feel like you protected something, you know, with the love of your land, protection of your land, and your spiritual way of understanding that you are a product of the earth, so that you live on. So that is that I think is the most important thing, value that I purposely try to see that my people will be free, like we talk about the freedom. And a lot of people talk about it and they don't understand it. But when you live it, it's another thing. Thank you.
That's all we have time for today. If you are a veteran of any conflict, you should tell your story for this program. And if you know a veteran, you should encourage them. And please take a minute and join me in thanking not only these gentlemen, but all who served the country in time of conflict.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.